Okay, welcome everyone. This is the interest call for the Hub. And this call was inspired by Flick, actually. Flick, you reached out and expressed some interest and curiosity about what's going on with the Hub. Um, I'm checking if I want to do like any kind of grounding meditation or just jump right in. It feels pretty grounded. Yeah. Yeah, Flick,
Like, yeah,
do you want to say more about what
yeah,
inspired this call? Yeah.
just offering that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess my interest started because I was in LA and found out I had to leave, and Forest was so nearby in Costa Rica compared to London. And I just thought, wow, my ego took over, to be honest, and thought it'd be very fantastic and spontaneous to go and join him. But then wisdom kicked in, and I decided to come back to London and do a bit more grounding of myself and tune in. And part of that wisdom was let's find out what's going on with Forrest. Who is he gathering with? Um, where are they going to be practically? And what are they creating together? So we had a call last week for me to start discovering this. And it's it's a different way of collecting and being in community than we would typically see from nomadic tribes. So we thought it would be great to do a group call with our emerging future people to understand that, because sure, there's a rough schedule and a rough way of being, it seems, but very much, hello, everybody, very much individually and collectively, they're tuning into wisdom, which is super fascinating way of being, to see how they should be gathering together and where. And Colombia seems to have been one of those fairly tangent, like bit of a tangent wisdom moves that came out of relatively nowhere and led to them being in Colombia right now. So we thought this call is a good idea to get people to understand the way in which they're gathering and how it might feel and what it might turn into, and also the rough plan for the rest of the year.
Yeah. Thanks, Flick. That's
Mm-hmm.
great. Um, so we've got Diego's on this call and Linus is joining the call right now. Both Diego and Linus are in Medellin as well. Uh, the three of us after this call are going to look at a house together here that's looks pretty nice. I'm excited about it. We'll see if it's the one. But yeah, so what I can give a little bit of backstory, Flick. Some years ago, almost it was more than 5 years ago and not quite 10 years ago. I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, I started basically like jumping out into the deep end of life and traveling the world without a plan. It was like, I'm just gonna let go and see what happens, see where the universe takes me. And the real impetus for this was like figuring out how do the larger animating energetics in the universe work? Like, how do we get in alignment with flow? And it's also quite for me it's been quite confronting because I sometimes can manufacture situations that I would claim I don't want. So how did I unconsciously manufacture a situation that I wouldn't actually want? What's going on with that? And it gives me a chance to work through my shadow, work with my unconscious and figure out what aspects of me am I not present to, what's going on. And it's been an intense journey. I actually ended up homeless at one point, maybe like 5, 6 years ago. I completely ran out of money. I had like $4 left. I was in Austin, Texas. And so it was hard. Like it was hard to stay in not knowing and stay in openness and curiosity and relating with life when basic survival needs were really being challenged. And there's like such an intense pull to like go back to stories that might feel safe, or like things that make sense based on the way that we socially construct reality in the year that we're living in, like what consensus reality is. And so the hub is actually, it's our invitation into a sort of consensus reality that's beyond. Let me just close WhatsApp because it's pinging me here. So you have consensus reality, like everyone knows the consensus reality of go to school and graduate and get a job and grow older and get promoted and retire and die, right? Like that's like a shared story that a lot of people live in. And then everyone on this call has outgrown that story, right? We're all like, what the heck? That's crazy. I'm not going to live my life like that. Like I want something more for myself. But we haven't created the shared realities yet for like what's beyond that, like the new normal, where you grow up and tell your kids like, yeah, you grow up and you like look inside your heart and in your soul and you figure out what you feel most compelled to do in the world and you live from this place and things just tend to work out and you meet all these amazing people out of nowhere. They just kind of show up and you collaborate together and develop this deep intimacy in your friendships, and you get to see the world and expand and become one with everything. And like that's not quite the like lesson taught in fourth grade yet. We're getting there. So the hub is like a piece of social fabric or an institution that we're creating that gives people an opportunity to have more consistent and persistent access to a way of being that's becoming normal. So typically, if you go to a coaching session for an hour, or you join a program for a few months, or you do an immersive for a weekend or something, you have this peak state experience. And the challenge is we have like as beings, right? We have a homeostasis, or we have a center of gravity. And so when we go and have a psychedelic trip, or we have a meditation, or we have a retreat, or some peak experience happens, we have this new threshold that we experience reality from for a few days. And then typically we regress back to our old way of being. That's typically what goes on. And so with the hub, we're like, hey, what if we give people consistent, persistent access to the state that they want to live from, so that the more we access a state, the more we breathe into it, nurture it, live from it, the more it sort of solidifies in a way, or it like fleshes out, it gets more robust ground. And then we can walk through the world from this new homeostasis, this new center of gravity. And so the hub is in service of like, for people who are really feeling like, I'm ready. Like I've outgrown my life as it is completely. I'm ready for something normal. I want to come have a deep, consistent, persistent access to something to where when I'm done, I can go back to the world, but not leave this new normal. That's a lot of what this is for. Of course, like I could say a ton about this, but I'll pause here. How's that to hear?
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, sounds amazing.
And I'm grateful that someone in the world is having this conversation with other humans. It's
Yeah.
about time.
I'm curious, those who say it sounds amazing, like what particularly speaks to you?
Well, these are just like unspoken conversations I've had with myself for so long. And so just to hear it from Forrest and to actually have it be the foundation of something that a community is being built on is really powerful, because these are like the whisperings of my soul. And like Forrest said, like anyone on this call is not up to the old way. Like we've already gone through, cutting through the forest with a machete to find our own path to like this call and to be in the same frequency. And so just these little nuanced conversations of, yeah, we know that there's a better way. and let's actually do it. Let's put this together. Let's go. Let's do it. So that's what excites me.
I see Diego's here on video now. Linus, maybe at some point you'll be able to join on video. But Diego, do you want to share a little bit about your experience, what it's like living in the hub? It's hard.
Okay. Do the thing. Hey everyone. Good to be here. Good to see a lot of new faces. As I'm hearing you, Forrest, I noticed this, like going a little bit into the mind of like, how does it look like? Like, what are the structures? Like, and I noticed like again and again, I'm sort of dropping into just being in this moment. Yeah, and I notice how, like for me, like if I'm being asked to speak about like what it is that we've been experimenting with or doing around the hub, it's like a way of being more than anything. Yeah, I noticed I could like create a bunch of stories and so on, and like, but it feels really good to just be like, oh, there's nothing in particular that I need to do right now. I can just be, and like being naturally unfolds as it best unfolds. And I think for me that's a big part of what's really cool of the hub. It's like it's been me, Forrest, and Linus, other people of course, but the last months it's been like the three of us most recurrently that I've been like most recurrently interfacing with around this exploration. Yeah, and it's pretty cool how everything has just unfolded in incredible ways by just like being in the exploration together, being in the field together, being in the. I notice as I'm talking, I'm like looking around at your faces and I'm like, I'm intending to share something, but I also don't know most of you, and I'm starting to feel you more, but I notice I would love to feel all of you more. This is me just sharing my experience right now. Yeah.
One of Diego, as you're speaking, what happens for me is that one of the things that I feel like is unique to the hub, as opposed to like we've been around a lot of intentional communities and around people who are exploring different kinds of living. What's different about the hub is that we have some agreements with each other. And for me, they evoke quite a palpably different experience in relationship. So for example, like we've all agreed with each other to play life 100%, to play life full out. And we have developed a practice where we sit together and do these like illuminations, like these clearings. They're not clearings so much as in like we have relationship drama that needs to be cleared. It's more like there's these deep drivers down in our being that need to be either flicked on or flicked off or repatterned, recreated. And we're like being in relationship with each other. It's like as things want to emerge, we're sort of finding the acupuncture points of what needs to be pressed on or freed so that life and aliveness can continue to flourish. And for me, that can be like incredibly challenging. I make up that's true for Diego and Linus. I don't actually know. Maybe I can just ask them. But it's the reason I say that is because Flick, when you and I had a call last week and we were talking about it, there was a moment where you were like, I don't remember what you asked, but the way I heard it was something like, well, how are you going to talk people into joining? And I was like, no, I actually want to do the opposite. I want to talk people out of joining, because it's that intense. Like I basically want to give you all the reasons not to join. And then if you still feel compelled to come. uh,
Well, I find that super energizing. Let's dive into like why we shouldn't come to the hub.
yeah. And Lauren just joined. She was here with us for a week. So she knows what it's like to be in the hub. Can ask her questions too. Hey, Lauren. We got similar backgrounds. Check it out.
What was your experience, Lauren?
Well, I'll say this for one thing, I felt like I was really mindful of this yesterday, so it's the first thing that's coming to me, has been how my health almost completely changed. My experience feeling like less inflamed, like my whole body, I looked like I dropped 10 pounds. Just from like inflammation and stress and like living, I don't know, like fully dropped in, I guess I would say, into myself. I another way I've described it, like my week has been like, maybe I won't say that, but it was so freeing. Just being completely honest with people and being in a space where that could be, I don't know, like given and received in a safe way. And since then I've taken that home and I'm just like completely honest with myself and with everybody I'm in contact with all the time, instead of like living in like stories that I create or like coming up with excuses for things. I feel like I'm not explaining this very well, but these are at least some of the experiences that I enjoyed. Yeah, if there's any clarifying questions you want, I'm happy to answer.
Something I feel inspired to share. Hey, Lauren. Is like when I was sharing just a minute ago, I noticed I was going really slow, and I was like allowing myself to go at my own pace. And I started having this sense of like, am I making people uncomfortable by going so slow? And I know it's something that has been challenging for me being at the hub, but has also been like sort of at the core of what has made it fruitful, juicy, has been like sitting with all the uncomfortability. Yeah, so to answer your question, Flick, I think that's one of the things that I would discourage people from joining the hub if they're not willing to be deeply uncomfortable. My experience, at least. Yeah. And it's not uncomfortable just for the sake of being uncomfortable, but uncomfortable for getting like closer and closer to the root of we are, and like letting go of all the things that are just getting in the way of that, are old things trying to take care of us. Yeah.
Yeah, and in my Linus, I don't know if you're going to be able to join on video, but it would be great to get your voice in here as well. Linus has been a real pillar in this project. But there's a lot of things like, So we track, right? Like trauma happens for us when an experience is too much for us to process in the moment it's happening. That's what trauma is. When something's too much for us to deal with in the moment that it's happening, we get trauma. And so we're tracking, like, you know, you kind of have, what is that, 3 concentric circles? Like you have your safe zone, your growth zone, and then you have the danger zone. And so we don't want anybody in the danger zone. Like that's not what we're doing here. We do our best to keep you, like, if somebody's getting close to the danger zone and needs to like take a break, we highly encourage that and support that, and we'll invite that. I just want to name that. This isn't like recklessness for the sake of insanity. That and there's a very deep invitation to, like, I often say, face the music, right? Or like, don't look away. Or Deborah in Light in Action always says there's nowhere to hide. It's that kind of environment. It's like, if you're really ready to let go of all the ways that we're pretending and hiding and like let into the light all the things that we're withholding and stuff like that. This is an ecosystem for this. Like we call each other out, we call each other forward, we challenge each other, we love each other deeply. And it's like, what is this saying? The truth sets you free, right? It's like a lot of that static, like Lauren was mentioning energetic inflammation. It's like Lauren shows up here and within 3 or 4 days, like has a completely different body essentially. It's like waves of energetic inflammation just come out. And it's like when you really have the chance to share what's true for you, like the truth heals us in a deep way. So yeah. And I know we're talking about this, we're also transmitting it. I mean, you're getting an embodied felt sense of the way of being, of what it's like. And we also invite you into it in real time. Like if there's like a deep truth that you feel compelled to share, something you feel called to name and bring forth, we welcome you in this moment into the hub.
Especially if it feels uncomfortable, or if it might make us uncomfortable to say something that's your truth right now.
Yeah, I can feel the resistance in my body. Like, oh, and I say it and I can feel my heart beating. Oh, oh. Yeah, I feel split. Like I hear it and I find it challenging, but also I find it challenging, but I don't feel fear or scared of the challenges. I imagine I'll find myself. And I also have this part that goes into logistics and kind of how do I plan on this? Like I have these 2 things. Yeah. Still feeling my heart.
Hello, everybody. Hi, Forrest. Hi, Diego.
Sabine.
Yeah, I feel the call to challenge you on something very specific, which is also part of the hub or what we lived or Forrest and what I see daily with my clients and on the retreats, that the challenge on being on the hub or living in this together is also to really let go of your own thoughts, how far or how developed you might think you already are. I experience so often that the basic things are not embodied at all. So for me, this hub is also something where you do like the basic stuff in depth, like being present is so easily said, but how present are you really in this right moment where you are listening now? And this is very little what I feel. So this is also an invitation where we really let go, not just honestly stating where things are not the right way and where we not in depth understand and sense it truly through body, mind, and soul, what the basics are to have a profound starting point to live some community like this together. And I'd like to invite you how you resonate with that and what's coming up for you when I'm talking about that.
Are you inviting someone specifically when you say you, or do you mean people in general?
I think the group.
Yeah, perfect.
My what came up for me was, oh yeah, I'm not really fully present with you right now. So I see that.
And I mean, no matter what we are doing, if we are not fully present, we are not capable of choosing who we want to be in this right moment of time. No matter where we are. So why are we choosing to be here if we are not present? So it's just that, it's just losing time. It just doesn't make any sense at all. And if we're really truly honest with ourselves, that's why most of us are struggling. It's not that we not know enough techniques or knowing enough people. It's about practicing the basic things and being honest that we barely succeed to be present. So all the other things, all these philosophical, high involved spiritually perceived things are nice, but it's useless. It's just like a roller coaster ride, and you're getting very much entertained, but it's not supporting anybody. So, and this is really talking about the real truth. That's what's actually, for me, what I see so lacking everywhere. So go back to the basics and understand that you've understood nothing. Even I say I've understood nothing, and doing daily the simple things again and again and again and again and again and again. Are you present? And if this is not a fully 100% on all body, mind, and soul levels, don't do anything else. So simply stop. It's just a waste of time, because you're never choosing who you really are in this split second of moment right now in this reality. And even in this split second of moment, we are joining this call together. Yeah, my 50 cents on that call. Thanks, Lars.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, when Forrest, I arrived at Costa Rica like 3 months ago, and then I met with Forrest like 2 months ago. When we first met, I remember like I was doing all these fancy consciousness things. Like I had all these awareness practices, and I remember like him like sitting with me and just looking me straight at the eye and like sort of like looking all beyond all the things I was doing and just like looking at some of the simplest of things. And yeah, I remember. What's interesting for me is the biggest part of the hub hasn't been having this like incredible peak experiences. It's been more like doing the work, like shadow work and stuff, just like doing the most for my experience has been a lot like we have this like big standard that we set to ourselves, but it's not even a standard, it's more like a field, and also agreements and stuff that like we set pretty high, and like everything that's not at that level, so to say, like there's no way that it doesn't show up. Yeah, so a lot of what it has been for me, it's like doing all the groundwork Um, yeah, so I really appreciate what you share, Sabine. It's really true.
Yeah, I appreciate Diego. I also see that you do the work together in the hub, and it's uncomfortable to do the same work again and again and again and again.
Yeah.
Yeah, my hands up. Do you mind me speaking? Sure. I'm now more curious about like this self-development and being connected with others is obviously important to stay connected, to stay together. But I am also more curious about strategies, like essentially how can we make synergies together that um, we find new ways of working, new ways of generating income. Yeah, I'm curious more about that. Like joining the hub, maybe I start a project or business with another person, or I become a social marketer, or I become a psychedelic facilitator in the hub, or so the people I meet in the in the cities that we move together. Yeah, something like that.
So if I'm hearing you, your question is like, how does collaboration work and what kind of opportunities are there to work together with people in the hub? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, like how do we like how do we make synergies together to work together? Yeah.
As I'm listening to you, the answer that just kind of shows up instantaneously is that we relate with each other at a depth and a level of clarity where the synergies that are available to us become present to us. So we don't have to manufacture synergy and we don't have to figure out how to work together. It's like we relate with each other and are with each other in a way where if there is synergy and if there is something to create in the world together, it becomes evident. Like palpably, like you can't miss it. It's so in front of your face. So if you're in the hub, if you're in the hub and playing the hub, being the hub, the opportunities that are available for you in this lifetime will be so evident to you. And and oftentimes they emerge in relationship. So we get together and relate in a certain way, and clarity emerges in relating.
Right. Yeah. Like getting to know people first, like before doing the business. I mean, I think it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's embodying a certain quality of being. Like, I don't know if anyone's ever had this experience where you sit down with someone. I mean, I had this with Sabine actually when she and I met in Barcelona, but it's like sitting down with someone and you like instantaneously both know why you've met each other. It's just like bang. And it happens when two people are living so clearly and embodied in truth that you come together and there's not very much distortion or like stuff that needs to be worked through or noise or any of that. It's just like bang, 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 bang. Here's the clarity. And then you just go. And that's for me, like that's the emerging economy. That's the emerging way of being. You meet people and you just know it. because there's not all this noise and confusion and trauma and distortion. We're just in clarity, and out of clarity emerges the next moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel more convinced. Yeah. Which places do the hub go together? How people move together, by the way, like each month, like from Costa Rica to Colombia, Colombia to the US, and then Europe.
Yeah. Yeah, so we get glimpses of what the future might look like. Like the way it seems, we're going to go to the US in a month, then we'll spend 3 months in Europe, then we'll spend 2 months in Australia. And like that vision is alive, like it updates itself. The more like, I don't know, when we all went to Costa Rica, I remember, I don't know, Diego, Linus, maybe I remember Lauren, anybody can tell me when I started talking about Colombia, but I just heard myself saying like, I just heard myself saying Colombia, and it was like I said it and I said it again. I said it again. I was like, wow, I've been saying Colombia. That's interesting. I keep saying Colombia. Now it's been 3 or 4 times. Now it's been 6 times. Now it's been 8 times. And now all of a sudden we're here. And it's like there's something, there's like, you know, we do a lot of really deep listening at the hub, listening to creation itself, listening to source, listening to that which creates all. And in that there's guidance and invitations, and it stewards our movement through the world in the moment, not just like on a month by month plan, but in the moment, like where we go to eat. What, like, I mean, it's taken over to the point of like, I can't even, it's taken over everything. But yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So to double click on that or be clear, it's like there is no like schedule, there is no plan. We do set, of course, plans when it's relevant and when there's collaboration between multiple people. It's like the events that are being organized in Australia, of course, they require some time to plan, and as many people come together, so of course we plan ahead. But there's also a lot of just listening. Of like, oh, it seems like we're going to Colombia. Are we going to Colombia? Feeling into it, noticing the dissonance. Yeah. So when you see in the website and there's like, these are the timelines, it's just what has been emerging as where like life is taking us. And for now, the hub has been just like where we're at, essentially, where we're coming from.
Yeah, and like, thank you, Diego. The thing I have to say is like when you're on the outside looking in at what we're doing at the hub or Light in Action, Our Emerging Future, like when you're on the outside looking in and asking questions from the mind, like the mind can't understand and can't fathom what's going on here. So it's like we're trying to manufacture answers to the mind, but it's like at the end of the day, if you're not having the experience, like it's an embodied thing. It's like we can't. That's one of the biggest things with the hub is you let go of trying to figure out what's going on and you just are swimming in it, and you figure out how to reorient yourself being in the tides. But it's not like, how do we figure it out and how do we make a model and how do we explain it? It's like we're just immersed in it. And it's actually like a foundational part is we really get it. Like the mind can't understand this. It can't fathom this. It's way beyond the mind.
Yeah, I was talking with a friend about it at lunch, and she said, well, why do you want to go? What outcome are you hoping for? And I was just like, I don't know. I'll go if I feel I need to go, like compelled to go, knowing that whatever outcome emerges is the right one if I stay aligned. But I don't know what the outcome is because the mind can't. I can make up a load of stuff, but It would just be made up.
Okay, can I ask some logistical questions now?
Mhm.
So, from what I'm hearing, you're inviting people, like, people are at different places. So, potentially, if someone only has like a week or two available, they could come for a week or two. Or if someone decides, like, I want to do this for months, they could come for months. Is that right?
Mhm.
Okay. And then, like, living. So, right now, you're saying in Colombia, you guys are going to get a house together. But if someone comes, they would decide if, like, oh, maybe I need my own space. I want to find my own, like, place to live. Or could I potentially, like, live with you guys, or right? Okay.
Yeah, we emerge all that together, like in relationship. So like if someone's interested in coming to the hub, we are relate about it, and out of relating comes clarity. Do we all live together? Do we live separately? No, 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 no. But everything you said, like everything you said, yes, is like those are all options. Like pretty much anything you could dream up is an option, right? Like they're all possible. We could live together, we could live separately. We just did this. Me, Diego, and Linus just did this. Do we want to get 3 individual apartments? Do we want to get a house together? There was a shocking amount of relating that needed to happen about that for clarity to emerge, in my opinion. But it's because the living situations are symbolic. The deeper thing is the energy has to move. And so what we were doing is moving all the energy. And then the result is the result. Like most of us don't care what the result is. I mean, we do, but it's you let go of the outcome, right? You know that if you go through the thing, the outcome's going to be better than you could have fathomed anyway. So
Okay. And then, like, let's say someone's coming to Colombia. You guys are all living together in a house, but I know me, I'm living somewhere else. So then we would, like, convene. Like, when you guys were in Costa Rica, were you guys all living together or separate?
yes.
Both. Okay. So where would you guys, like, hang out day to day?
Lauren.
What was that, an invitation to expand or just call? Okay. I'm like smiling and like so joyful because I'm like oh my gosh. Okay. Pulling it in. There wasn't like a set, there wasn't ever like, okay, we're meeting in the morning at this time. It was like, I would just like contact Forrest or Diego and be like, hey, like, do you want to go do something right now? I feel like, even as I'm saying that, I'm like, it's like a bunch of, you're in so much clarity and love. It's like a bunch of friends hanging out that are emerging things together, that are creating. And so when you say, hey, do you want to go do this with me? And then you're free to say yes or no. And we would happen to convene all together if it was, the energy was right. Like, oh, we're all here right now. And you just let people know and they come and go as they please. Does that answer questions? Okay.
What I guess I can speak about in hindsight, a lot of what I've seen occur is we get a lot of meals together, we co-work together, we go to the gym together, we go to the beach together. We like trade body work or like lie around on the floor and don't do anything, go get in the river. Like the thing that's really come online the last few days in Costa Rica, Linus and Diego and I, the three of us, were in a 1-bedroom apartment together, which was so much fun. I was sleeping on a futon, and like my little kid and me was just having a blast. Um, but we would sit in these circles every day for like hours and hours and hours and hours, and we were working through the stuff that needed to be cleared for like what it is we feel called in the world to do, to come through. And that's what I feel like before it was, what did we call it, Diego? I don't even remember, cross listening or something. Like we would just sit across from each other and open our hearts and open our minds, and we would just do these shares. But that practice has deepened and become more powerful. And it's basically like, like it's like there, like we said earlier, there's nowhere to hide. So if you come here and hang out and there's things that are like if you're doing things where you're tripping over yourself or holding you back, or you want to do something but it's not happening and stuff, like that's going to get explored in a way where you free yourself. And where there's something in us, there's an evolutionary impulse that's moving through us that has its own momentum, right? And so the difference is that we're not trying to manufacture what do we do with our life. We're accessing the intelligence that created the universe, that created the solar systems, that created planets, and seeing how that intelligence wants to move through you and your life. What kind of business offerings does it want to create? What kind of life does it want to live? And supporting you to have the courage and clarity to live from this place, while also stabilizing at the energetic throughput that puts through your system, because it's a lot. And it kind of blasts out all the distortion and illness and bullshit. This is what's the disclaimer? This is not medical advice. Don't sue me. But it blasts out all the crap, right? And what's left is clarity, clear, vibrant consciousness that has its own generative trajectory. And if we give ourselves over fully to that and let it lead life, life is very different. It's probably the best I can do in explaining it. You got to experience it. It's different. And Dev, I saw you had your hand up, so I want to loop you in if you still have it up.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I popped a question in the chat too, but yeah, on kind of a logistic level, like say I'm, I just have a whole separate job. I just want to be around you guys and like, basically tap in when I can and when I want to. It seems like that would be open, or is there a certain level of commitment or participation you're seeking? And also, like, how do you see it being different than Skyway, or like, because that's what I have as a reference for living with you, and Diego was there at a certain point. So yeah, those are just a few things.
Yeah. So just so you know, everybody, I'm putting this link in the chat. If you the first step, if anybody wants to join us in the hub, the first step is you go to this web link and you click get started. And that goes to an application to join for the hub, which I know many people have already filled out. I know some of those people are on this call. Thank you for filling it out. And we go from there. So we get your answers to this, and then we have a conversation and we enter into relationship around what's possible. So Dev, that would be like there's not a universal answer. The answer is in relationship with you. So it might be that it suits to work on something else around us, but it's not like a templated response to everybody, if that makes sense. Does that make
Gotcha.
sense?
Yeah, I think so. So like, but are you expecting a certain level of like participation or collaboration on our emerging future? Like that's something that I would like to contribute to, but I guess that's my question more succinctly.
That's a good question. Nobody, including me, nobody here has a primary commitment to. I'm giving a first answer and then I'll give a second answer. The first answer is the primary commitment is to that, what I was speaking about before. The primary commitment is to that. And like, if you're letting that lead your life, when I say that, I'm saying capital T that, like when you're letting intelligence, capital I intelligence lead your life. If you're doing that, then we're just like, thank you. We appreciate you. If you're around us, it's going to work out great. If you're not around us, it's going to work out great. Right. Like the point of the hub is to support people living from that. So if you're living from that, like, sweet. We'll know in an instant whether or not you're going to be hanging out with us today or not. And you will too. That's answer number one. It's interesting because what your question evokes in me is like, initially, we've had a lot of conversations about whether we would want to have the hub be a paid thing where you pay money to come and stay and you get supported, or have it be like a work exchange where you're contributing to our emerging future in collaboration for staying. But the deeper thing underneath all those potentials that we track very deeply in our emerging future in the hub is reciprocity. And so what truly matters is there's an infinity loop between people, right? So you and me, Dev, you and me, Diego, you and me, Flick, you and me, Sabine. And we're watching, is there like a free flowing, vibrant energy flowing in this infinity loop? And so when you're in the hub, we're tracking that and going like, is this getting one-sided? What kind of dynamic is this? And how do we, like, what is it that wants to happen to support a robust, yeah, do we vibe, bro? Exactly. Yeah, and is there reciprocity? Right? If there's like, we have this conversation a lot. Like if there's, like, for example, I do a lot of mentoring. I'll just speak with Diego because I can see him. I've like mentored Diego a lot. And then Diego comes to me and he goes, hey, this feels a little bit weird for me. You've been mentoring me a lot and holding space for me a lot and supporting me a lot. I want to contribute back. Can we have some more reciprocity? And that's the kind of relating that happens in the hub, is you're like tracking this reciprocity and going like, I want there to be free flowing reciprocity in our connection. And there's a way that that happens that just feels deeply embodied for both people, where you both feel like, yeah, that's really good. And then we see, what does that really good feeling emerge in terms of, are you contributing to the hub? Are you paying to be here? Are you something else? Like, whatever. Deliberately developmental pirate ship. That's right. Let's go. Who was I going to ask? Linus, we haven't heard anything from you. You want to share anything? I can ask you a more specific question, but.
Yeah, feel free to ask anything you would like to hear of me specifically.
Well, you flew from Germany to Mexico, I don't know, 6 months ago, and you spent a couple months in Mexico with Diego. And then you came to Costa Rica, and I don't know, maybe 3 months ago, we started hubbing. So I'm wondering, like, can you talk about what's your experience like living in the hub, maybe versus what was it like before? Like, I guess specifically, dun, 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 dun. Yeah, what's it like to live in the hub? That's my question for you.
So I think to answer that question, I want to give a little bit of a background on myself. So I think a lot of you, from what I've heard, have had the experience of living in some kind of intentional or conscious community like Skyway, which has been mentioned before in this talk, which I don't have whatsoever. And so I embarked upon this journey
completely unprepared, not knowing the ways of being that were waiting for me. And so, to answer the question specifically, it's unlike anything I've ever experienced before, because the dynamic in which we relate to each other, yeah, I mean, it's essentially we're sourcing in real time at all time, which is yeah, it's an indescribable feeling. And the kind of growth that I've experienced in the past, I guess, like 2 to 3 months that I had the pleasure of, living with Forrest in very close relationship, has been incredible. Like I am a completely different person, and all the better for it. And I've actually started implementing the things that I've been able to take from you, Forrest, into my sort of outside relationships too, which have benefited from that immensely. So yeah, feel free to ask any follow-up questions. It's quite hard for me to put this whole experience into words. I hope I'm doing a halfway decent job. Of course, you're muted.
What's happening for you, Flick?
You sense I was about to say something. Yeah, the curiosity that was coming up for me was with what was just shared was I have a hunch that you want to stay a while. And at some point, you'll be ready to be out of the hub and taking the gifts from the hub to the rest of the world in real time without the support of the hub around you physically. And then my next thought was like, that will just, when that happens, that will just happen. That will happen. That's not a planned thing. That will just pop at some stage when people think, yeah, it's time to leave the cocoon, so to speak, and go out into the world. And I just wondered if any of you three currently in Colombia had thought about that. Or it's just another thing that will emerge.
I've certainly seen it. Diego, were you going to say something?
It's interesting because the way you asked the question had the way I received it, and tell me if I received it incorrectly, there was this sense of like there's this like cocoon kind of energy that the hub offers, like this like support, the safety, and then there's like going outside to the wild world. Is that how you meant it?
Yeah, thanks for reflecting back, not quite like that, but more like there is a difference being in the presence in the hub and out of the hub. I feel like both can feel unsafe at times, but there's a difference between being together and not being physically together. Or maybe not.
Yeah, it's very true. I remember, for example, when we were in Skyway, where I met Devin also, I remember it was very much like we were spending all the time together. And so when like the difference from that to like going away from that, there was a pretty stark like I needed some integration and stuff like that. Yeah. And what's interesting of like the last months, there's been a lot less like intent. I mean, there's been a lot of intensity, but there's also been a lot of like we're living in different places and we're all doing our own thing. And so I notice when I hear that question, what happens for me is like even in this moment, I feel like I am in the hub, but I'm also like on my own. I'm just in the world. Yeah, so it feels like the distinction has become less and less relevant as I feel more and more just like resourced. Yeah, instead of it being a peak experience, it has just become a bit more like a new normal.
That really answers my question. Yeah. Thank you. Did anyone else experience it differently?
I'm in full agreement to what Diego shared just now.
Can I share? So my experience, it wasn't quite like, oh, I'm ready to go home. I had other obligations that I needed to leave for, or that I told myself I needed to leave for. And it happened at exactly the right time where I was like, I had a few like peak experiences during my stay in the hub. And the emotional relief that I needed was separation. Like I needed to be away from the hub because there was processing that I needed to do by myself. Diego and I were like just barely talking about this just a little bit about my integration since being home. And what has been really cool is being in the world and like, you know, like not a lot of people are on the same like frequency that you've just, or okay, owning my experience, like not a lot of people are on the same frequency that I've just experienced. You can't describe with words or the mind. And yet, I didn't crash the same way that I thought I would being in like real world space versus the hub. And in fact, was able to, through my own, like it was like a trusting process with myself, relearn and reintegrate and come out stronger and then be able, and now I just kind of like live in so much clarity and love, and it just kind of permeates. And then people that resonate with that are attracted to it in like real life. So I don't know, that's been my experience. I don't know if that answered anything.
Something I want to share about my experience in regard to your question, Frank, is that because of the organic nature of how we are with each other in the hub, I sort of gradually updated my software in a way that makes sense. And so due to my software being updated, there's no need for me to act differently when I'm outside of the hub compared to when I'm in the hub. Because I just changed my ways of being and perception in a very organic way without even trying, actually. That's the most amazing part to me. Forrest, hats off to you for always just keeping this organic flow going, which seems to be one of your gifts.
Thank you, guys.
No need to do anything about this, but I noticed my attention is very present with you, Jorlis, if that's how you say your name. I noticed my attention for the last minutes has been like, how is she doing? What's happening for her?
Mm. I feel in some sort of dancing in the middle of things. Like, yeah. But this has been very helpful is I feel like I have like a better idea now. Still something I want to experience. but now I have like, I have this same thing or something similar to Flick, like this jump between what I call, the external world life and then the hub. Almost like if the frequencies are different, and then I have this image in my head, like if there is something I have to do, but maybe I don't. And I noticed the resistance bringing my normal life here, like thinking about it.
I noticed when you said, I'm wondering if there's something I have to do, but maybe I don't. My body like sighed in agreement. There's like internal tension, like just melted when you said maybe I don't. It was really nice.
Yeah, that feels like a yeah. What's happening for us?
I'm getting this like what's happening for me in this moment is this, first of all, really appreciating the transmission of hearing you and Flick right now and just feeling the shift in space, the shift in the tone of the call. And as that's occurring, I'm getting this clarity of like, and Diego, I'm especially saying this to you. I'm getting this clarity of like people can come join us, and there's some people who could basically just come in and out and like are already embodying the hub in a lot of ways, or like their frequency is very close to the hub, and so they could basically just show up at the doorstep and come in and pop out. And then there's people who need varying levels of onboarding and post hub support. Like for everybody, Diego oftentimes refers to the hub as being a psychedelic, or like being in the spaces we convene as a psychedelic. And we don't take psychedelics. I mean, you can, but that's not like a thing that we officially do. Anyway, I don't want to get off on a track about psychedelics. The point is like it evokes a state experience where you feel like you're on drugs, but that comes organically from you. It's not a chemically induced state. It's a organically induced state. And Diego and I have had conversations about when people are going for a journey like that, it's nice to have some onboarding and nice to have integration based on whether you've had experiences like this before. So I'm just with the like structures that we can create to support people at different places in their journey to make sure that people are having like a healthy, robust, resourced experience.
Yeah, that lands in me as flexibility. And I notice that feels good on my system, like I imagine. In my case, maybe having my own space and then just sharing time and connection and then retrieving when need to.
Can I share an impact release?
Yes.
When I'm, as you're sharing and I'm like feeling into my body, I get this, like my body kind of makes this gesture of turning like this. And the question arises in me of like, will I be accepted?
Yeah, that question feels true in me. Yeah. But it feels like it's in me, but not feels more complex than that, but it is there, yes.
In this moment, I notice I want to dance with, like, I want to play with you in this. And I'm also mindful of the context of this call and the time that we have. So I'm like naming my energy for being in relationship with you in this and also like pausing and checking.
Thank you for naming it.
Yeah. Mary, we haven't heard your voice yet. Is there anything you'd like to share?
I am just deeply appreciating being in this space. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It sounds like there's some feedback. Yeah, I just feel my whole system melting in this space and being reminded of my first impact of being in this work and I just keep Forrest, I just keep looking at you and being like, you fucking genius. It's just a really incredible thing that this is available in the world right now.
Mary, as I'm hearing you, the thing I was going to share when Flick, you asked your question is re-evoked for me, which is like, I'm sort of seeing or sensing these different trajectories of like you come to the hub and then you might leave the hub to re-enter like, I don't know, the world or whatever you want to call it. So that's like a trajectory. Another trajectory is you enter the hub and you stay in the hub. You like travel with us, like from South America to the US to Europe, and you're like in the hub. And the third one that I'm seeing and sensing is like places we go and things that we're involved with instantiating hubs that stay there even when we move on. This is really happening in Australia right now. Like we're going to be in Australia for 2 months in the fall, and there's like some deep infrastructure getting built out. That's like, there are going to be lots of things running in Australia for our emerging future when we're not there. Like that's a place that's really getting like built out. So those are like different, at least 3 different tracks. There's probably more, but like coming in and going out, coming in and staying, and then staying in these concrete hubs, these like centers that stabilize around the world.
I just want to name that I gotta go in like 5 minutes.
Yeah, same. So we got 5 minutes. Does anybody have any? I'm doing that with Diego.
I have a lot of gratitude, like for all of you and for this insight that was really felt for me. Thank you a lot.
Like when you say it's really felt, like, can you share more about that experience? What happens for you?
Yeah, so the gratitude is felt a lot, but also just a snippet of how I imagine convening with you in person at the hub. And I've really enjoyed especially the feeling into like the tennis between Diego and Forrest and Linus. Yeah, and just getting a sense of the co-creation that happens in the field and then comes through you all individually and together. I feel like I tasted that with my tongue today, like a little lick.
I'm appreciating how all of our uniqueness can be together in this call. That's something I'm really appreciating.
I'm noticing first how we utterly failed on this call. We utterly failed because the premise of it is to make it as unappealing as possible to join the hub. We've shared all these good experiences, but now I imagine people want to join. So maybe say something to end the call that's gonna recall people. I'm being playful, of course. I don't think I need to name that.
Yeah, you know what it feels like? It feels like when you're like 5 years old and someone comes up to the playground and they're like, do you want to play? That's the feeling in my body. So yeah, you utterly failed.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody's feeling this sensation in your body, you might be having this experience. This often happens pre an experience like this, where you can feel everything that might fall apart if you say the truth and start living what's real. And so maybe to color in a little bit of what you're sharing, Linus, oftentimes we have like parts of our life, or our entire life can be this kind of like house of cards. And there can be this feeling inside our body of like, oh my God, if I really let go and share what's real, everything that I'm up to, all the people in my life, the relationships, my job, whatever it is, it might just come undone. It might all collapse. And I just want to like name that, because that might be happening in some way in your body, and it might bring a little bit of peace to hear that named. And
Yeah, I
go ahead, Jorlise. Yeah.
just want to share. I noticed tears coming when I hear you saying this.
Yeah.
Just that.
Yeah. And the hardest thing about this process in a lot of ways is that we can see everything that's going to fall apart, but we can't see what it is that wants to come online. So. Yeah.
What a note to end with.
Dev, is there anything you want to share before we close? I'm looking to you in this moment.
Yeah, I mean, what you just said, like, I was in the mirror, like looking at myself, and you said that, and I was just like, it's like, oh shit, like this intensity about it. And yeah, I just have like a bunch of different opportunities in front of me, and it's you posing that question or statement, it kind of like just cut deep, and so I just want to make sure that I'm making a decision from a still and quiet place versus a just logic mind place. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Beautiful. Okay, everybody. Well, thank you. Thanks for letting us share with you what we're up to. Thanks, Flick, for convening this and inviting your questions to be shared in a group format. It's really an honor for me to get to share with you what we're up to and what we're playing with. Tipping my hat to Diego and Linus. These guys are exceptional, like truly exceptional human beings. I'm so impressed by them and how they're showing up and leaning in. And you too, Lauren. And you too, Dev. And you too, Mary. And you too, Corby. And everybody. I love you all deeply. Thanks for letting me share with you in this way and for receiving us. We're excited to have you if that's what's going to happen. If not, that's great too. Love you all.
Adios.
Love you all. Have a great day.
Bye.
See you soon.
Bye, guys.
See you soon.